Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 276 of Humanity Rising. This is a special edition for us today. We're starting a little earlier and in partnership with World Unity Week. For the entire week, Humanity Rising is integrating our sessions with World Unity Week. And today we want to focus on youth and the voices of youth from around the world in conversation amongst themselves about issues of great import, not only to their generation, but for the entire human race as we painfully and tentatively navigate our way through this extraordinary pandemic that has brought the entire world into a common experience and a single conversation. So thank you all for joining us today. And I now turn over the program to Sarah Oliver. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you to Humanity Rising for hosting us in this conversation. My name is Sarah Oliver, and I'm from Cape Town, South Africa, and I work as the Associate Director of Global Programs for the United Religions Initiative, which is a global network of peace-building organizations set up to support grassroots communities in creating peace, justice, and healing in the world. I'm joined today by my colleague and friend Samira, who will introduce herself shortly as well. And we just want to say a huge welcome to all of you. It is so great to have you here for this call. And this important conversation about what meaningful youth engagement looks like in our context and in our world. I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. We have Ezra is going to be posting some chat comments as kind of housekeeping for us. But please let us know where you are coming from and how you're doing today. What is always so amazing about these calls is realizing where people are coming from in different parts of the world and being able to communicate and share ideas across our contexts. So I really encourage you to use the chat function in that way. And then just to say that we are offering translation as well. So you will see translation into Spanish. So you will see that there's a world icon in the bottom of your screen. And please click that and select the language of your choice. And then we are also, this event is being recorded and live streamed onto Facebook. So if for any reason you're uncomfortable with it, with your video being on for the recording, feel free to have your video off, and we will accommodate you in that way. So we're going to be diving straight in because I think we have such an exciting lineup of speakers, and I'm going to turn now to my colleague Samira to introduce herself and to take us forward. Thanks, Samira.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Jim, for launching this wonderful gathering for all of us. My name is Samira. I am coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from the capital, Sarajevo, and I'm truly blessed to work with Sarah and a number of other colleagues for United Religions Initiative. Today, my first task for today is to just briefly introduce URI, the organization on behalf of which we put this call together. So allow me to share a brief visual of what URI actually is. It's really, I'm grateful to introduce this in just a few minutes, but I hope I'll be successful at it. Before you can see the logo of URI, a wonderful, someone calls it a flower, someone calls it a star, but usually for people it has wonderful associations to interfaith peace building and grassroots community building, which URI actually does. It started back in 1993 when our founder, Bishop Swing, asked a very simple question. If nations can rally together around important questions, why won't religions do the same? And he then started this wonderful noble quest of trying to bring as many people together as possible. And that's how thousands of people gathered and created the foundations of URI. And this is part of our URI's preamble, and it says, "We, people of diverse religions, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions throughout the world, hereby establish the United Religions Initiative to promote enduring daily interfaith cooperation, to end religiously motivated violence, and to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings." This is how it all started. And 20 years after the foundation of URI, we are happy to report that we're working in 113 countries, so around the world, and we have 1,075 cooperation circles, which are member organizations that identified with the vision and mission of URI and decided to join what we're doing around the world. Apart from the cooperation circles that we have a number of individuals around the world who decided to join this interfaith movement. These people that we are blessed to encounter every single day are truly ordinary. When you interact with them, you would never say that they're a hero, but when you actually study their work and when you see what they do in the grassroots, they're truly doing an extraordinary work in their communities and globally in order to improve the conditions for everyone around them. We can work in one or in all 14 action areas of URI, but whether it's youth and women's empowerment, conflict transformation and resolution, peace building, interfaith dialogue, whatever it might be, our cooperation circles and individual members around the world are trying to create solutions to the problems that affect their local communities. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud of the solutions that they came up with in the past 20 years. So this was a very brief presentation of URI. I encourage you to explore more about what URI is by going to www.uri.org. Find us on social media, such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and feel free to get in touch if you need any more information about what URI actually is. So I will stop the share of my screen right now. I hope that this was brief enough. Sarah, would you like to add something?
It was perfect, Samira. Thank you. And I think just to say that when you speak about ordinary people who are making a difference in their communities, I just want to acknowledge that so many of them are on this call and with us today, which is really exciting. And I think for this to be a space where those stories are heard and voices are heard is really important. So I encourage everyone to engage in the conversation as we go. There will be time for breakout rooms later in the program, and yeah, to just really acknowledge that at the center of what our work is about are the members and people from cooperation circles in URI. So let's chat about the purpose of today, Samira.
Thanks, Sarah. So Sarah and I started thinking about what kind of youth program we were never a part of, what kind of youth conversation we never had a chance to actually engage or be engaged ourselves or engage with others. And this topic of meaningful youth participation really stood out to us. And that's why we decided to organize this with support of URI and to put it together for World Unity Week. For us, it was important to organize this as we wanted to just to imagine us sitting around a table, having a cup of coffee, and actually talking about the challenges that youth activists encounter in their daily engagement, because ever so often we hear young people speaking at very important events and conferences. We hear them giving keynote speeches, we see them getting awards, but we actually want to see what's there left to be done in order to enhance that meaningful participation. What's the next step? How can we all together take this further? Not just as youth, as one part of the population, but this is a question for all of us. How can we all together create spaces for youth to be engaged in meaningful way in all the processes and in our society, pretty much. So that's why we have incredible panelists coming from the grassroots, and our UNDP youth policy expert, Noella Richard with us today in order to kick off this very important conversation.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say that I think youth participation, like you've said, Samira, is so much more than just representation and kind of tokenism in that way. And I'm really looking forward to what our speakers have to share about their experiences. I know for me, I've had experiences of being part of committees where you're the only young person on a committee of older people, and that experience is difficult and challenging, and we need to be really kind of questioning the ways that we're creating as much space as possible for meaningful youth engagement. So yeah, let's bring on our team. I will. Cool.
Sarah, I have to add that I'm enjoying the very busy chat and reading from where people are joining us today and how they're feeling today. Warm greetings to everyone who joined us today. Should we step forward and now introduce our guests, our panel?
Yes, I've just realized one quick tech challenge that I'm going to have to communicate with our tech team about, but please, if you can call on everyone to introduce themselves, we can do that.
Yeah, we can start with Farina. Would you like to be the first one?
Sure, Samira, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Farina Maria, and I'm originally from the south of India, from a city called Bangalore, which is known as the Silicon Valley of India. And like all people from the Silicon Valley, I did my computer science engineering. And at a very young age, I had the privilege of being involved with multiple organizations. And my focus was human rights and interfaith dialogue. From there, I progressed on to women empowerment and youth upliftment. And that's what has been my motive all through the years. I'm currently in the UAE, and I haven't been able to go home in the last year because of COVID. And I've lately taken a more macro approach to how I'm contributing in my communities, because it's all come down to managing a lot of the things online and working with such collaborative youth spaces and getting things done. And hopefully we'll get to talk more about everything soon.
We absolutely will. And thank you for being such an inspiring part of URI and a member together with all of your colleagues from Global Youth Movement. Now I would like to move us to Wembui.
Hi everyone, my name is Wambui Ngige. I am from Nairobi, Kenya. I am a global trustee at URI, and I'm really excited to have everyone to have this important conversation that is really important in our day-to-day lives. And I am an attorney. I work on women's and human rights and other aspects of the law back at home here in Kenya. And I am also working with women and girls in informal settlements, trying to give them a voice, a platform. And of course, I am a youth champion, not because I'm just young, but because I believe that our presence in this world is just not to flow and grow out from being a child to an adult, and this stage is the most critical one, and it's a great pleasure to have everyone, and I look forward to us having this great conversation on just not engaging young people, but whether we truly really matter or we are just here to sit and make the table look good and beautiful, but are we really considered as important aspects, or we're still clinging on the aspect of we are the youth leaders of tomorrow. Has tomorrow come? Is it our time? Welcome to this conversation. Thank you.
It's so wonderful to have you with us, and always to work with young people like yourself, a wonderful activist and a great young professional. So it's great to have you with us, Wembui. I would like to go to Salwa right now.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. How are you? This is Salwa from Iraq. I'm an English trainer. and I graduated from College of Education, English department, 2018. And since then, I started training students, usually teenagers, uh, for English skills, usually summer classes and this stuff. I mean, since I was at college, I enrolled and started voluntary work with the LARSA organization, which I'm representing today, and LARSA is interested in supporting minorities in Iraq and supporting youth. We made a lot of activities together, and they were incredible. For example, the job fair, which was interesting for the Iraqi people, especially those who are, I mean, we are suffering from unemployment, so it was a nice opportunity for them to. I mean, we got more than 1,000 participants, and most of them got job offers and this stuff. I'm also, I mean, I like my job being English trainer with the students, with the teenagers, supporting them and encouraging them to not only have English classes, but it's about conversation. So we usually talk about many things during the class, and yeah, and I'm
Salwa,
happy
I
to be
just have
here
to
with you today.
yeah, it's wonderful to have you with us. And it's not just about teaching them English, it's about being a proactive support and a mentor to all of them. So, and I'm really humbled to
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
all the work that you do. And I hope that others on the call will get at least a little glimpse into what are the extent of the activities that you do in the grassroots. Thank you so much. I would like to move to Abraham. Abe, can you go next?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Abraham Lugo. You can call me Abe. That is perfectly fine with me. Just a little bit about myself and the work that I do. I currently reside in Las Vegas, Nevada. So all of the work I do is kind of Southern Nevada based. And really, I began my involvement in this sort of anti-racism work, interfaith work through a cooperation circle called Anytown Las Vegas. I'm very, very thankful for the organization because what it does is put youth on the forefront of all conversations and gives them a platform and opportunity to really have the leadership opportunities to kind of break down systemic barriers, specifically in the context of the United States, and really have tough conversations that youth aren't typically a part of. And I think that opportunity in making sure that youth are present in these contexts has made a giant difference in how we're viewing youth within our region and how we're expanding the leadership to show that we've been moving forward in a transition stage from sure, youth can be present, but it's kind of just to check off a box or to have them and say, oh, we have some youth here, but now it's allowing us and them to be able to be the leaders that they want to be. And like Wambui said, kind of start having that conversation of, are we the future or are we the now? And when has that time actually come? So I'm just very grateful that we can be here and kind of come together, whatever our context may be and wherever we may be from, and come together to talk about how the importance of youth can make all the difference in our work. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is wonderful to have you with us. And I agree absolutely with everything that you said. And it's so important that we have the spaces for these conversations, but after these conversations, there needs to be some action coming from all different sides of the society in order to make sure that that some changes actually take place. And as someone who has been engaged locally and globally in youth empowerment and engagement, I understand that there's a lot of overlap. no matter how small of an issue I thought that I have locally where I live, I encountered colleagues from other parts of the world who experience the exact same problems. And I feel that this conversation will help us spotlight some of these biggest challenges and issues, and encourage us to continue working locally and globally at the same time. And I had a pleasure of meeting a person who's on a call with us who really showed me what global and local youth empowerment means like and looks like. Noella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, it's a real pleasure to be with you. I hope you can hear me. So my name is Noelia. I lead the youth work at the United Nations Development Program. I'm based in New York. I've been working with the UN since 2005 in different capacities, as a consultant, before that also as an intern, and then was recruited as a junior professional to work on governance reforms, on public administration reforms, local governance. And I gradually got into the youth space simply because of the recognition that, you know, something was missing in the work that we were doing. We were talking decision making, leadership, we're talking responsiveness of institutions, but young people were not necessarily part of that. So a group of colleagues initiated this work in UNDP around 2013, 2014. There were already some initiatives with young people in some countries, of course. But what we decided to do was to basically push for a more comprehensive approach to youth development challenges, but also to have a particular intention, which was to address also assumptions about the role that young people play in development and peace, assumptions about, you know, how violent they might be, or how much of a threat they might be in society, rather than investing in their leadership. So the work that I'm doing now is really about managing a global program on youth, which is called the Youth Global Program for Youth Empowerment Program for Sustainable Development and Peace, and which pretty much is working on youth civic engagement, political participation, the role that young people play as peace builders, and also looking at youth economic empowerment and how we can strengthen programming when it comes to decent jobs for youth. I mean, emphasizing the quality of those jobs. And I'm very pleased to be here today because I've had the pleasure of working with Samira in the context of a particular initiative that we launched in 2019, which is called the 16 by 16, working with 16 fabulous young leaders from grassroots movements, leading initiatives to advance peaceful, just, and inclusive societies, which is called also SDG 16, the Sustainable Development Goal 16 of the 2030 agenda, which is our umbrella agenda for development at the moment. So really pleased to be here and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And from all of your introductions, I already spotted a few questions that Sarah and I were never able to draft because we never know how people are going to introduce themselves. But we clearly now see a lot of links, and I'm really happy to be able to launch us into the main segment of our call, and that is the honest conversation and deep conversation about the challenges that our peers in the grassroots, our colleagues, our equals in the grassroots, who might be just a little bit younger than us, face in their daily engagement. Farina, if you don't mind, I'd like to go to you first and ask you something related to your introduction. So I know that you're incredibly engaged in your local community in India. And in your introduction, you said that you're trying to be micro-engaged still, even though you were so far from your home. Can you remember what were the challenges of being there, and do you still see those same challenges when you're far away?
Well, it's a very good question, Samira. I feel like the challenges are very different now, and the challenges that I used to face when I was back in India are still there, but I'm not facing it, right? Somebody else who's representing me on the ground, they'll be going through it. For example, for me, meaningful youth participation would be when youth is involved in all stages of planning, decision making, executing. And if we take any small initiative, especially in times of COVID, we had an initiative where we were trying to get hospital beds and oxygen cylinders to people in need. So we had created online communities where people could reach out to us. But we needed some form of validation, if not from the government, or we needed some form of validation from organizations. So people know that this is a safe space, they can reach out to us and they will get what they need. And it was very difficult convincing officials about this because one, they don't believe that youngsters have good ideas. Two, they don't believe that social media could be used in such a positive way. So this was very difficult. And if you get older people, I'm sorry for all the amazing advices we have here, but when you get older people involved, there's two problems, right? One, there's going to be a clash of opinions because everybody believes that older equals wiser, which is not true in this changing dynamic, or they give you a part of the decision making or the planning and not the rest of it. And this will only work if youth is there in every stage. So when I'm so far away, I can only open pathways, get people connected with the right connections, but it's still very difficult because I'm physically not present to do a lot of the conversation. But we made sure not to stop it, to keep going, try new ways and means, and create new initiatives.
It's really good to know that you're still finding ways to stay in touch and stay active despite your professional career and the developments there and being so far away. And you bring absolutely two brilliant points: the systematic challenges that youth faces when trying to start an initiative or to dig deeper into a project, and the intergenerational clash, which is often an issue that we hear from the grassroots. This reminds me of something that Salva mentioned in her introduction, and the first time when I had a chance to meet her. And Salva spoke about the real life struggles of being in a post-conflict zone and struggling to find a job for decent living and sort of sustaining yourself, and the lack of opportunities for decent job and decent engagement. So Salva, could you share a little bit about those challenges that you face?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know, but I guess, not I guess, I mean, everybody knows that this problem is mostly in all countries. It just have differences. And the problem in our country, in Iraq, is that the poor education system. Like the graduate people are graduating from colleges, even if they were engineers or sometimes doctors, without being able to have a fluency in English, which is now one of the most important and basic skills for the youth in order to find a decent job. Let's say not in the governmental sector, but in the private sector. That's why we have a lot of protests, and let's say 70% of them is the youth who cannot find jobs. They are asking the government in order to supply them, in order to obtain job opportunities for them in the governmental sector. But the problem is the governmental facilities cannot have this large number of people. That's why in our efforts, we are trying to help people, I mean, the graduate, first to improve their skills. I mean, the computer and the English skills. You might say that these are very basics, and they are very, I don't know, they are basic skills that everyone should have. But believe me, in Iraq, a lot of number of graduates, they don't have these basic skills. So what we are trying to do is to provide them with courses in order to have them learning these skills to find jobs. And the second thing is that to depend on themselves, to start thinking out of the box, to start their own business. Why to depend on the government? I mean, this has been a long time where we are struggling with this problem with the government, and for more than 13 or 14 years, and they are not able to obtain these services. So why not to depend on yourselves? And the country, the cities, they need these these businesses from, especially from the youth. And we are happy that these changes are happening now. But they're like slowly moving, but they are happening. We're happy for that.
Well, I'm happy to hear that there's certain changes happening, but still I'm a little bit, I have to be absolutely honest, I'm a little bit disappointed if there is an opinion that everyone, well, you're a graduate, like you're graduating from university, how come you don't know this, or how come you don't understand it, when there is no actual opportunity for young people to enhance their knowledge and skills and these capacities. And unfortunately, I can relate to that because in the context where I'm living, it's implied that you speak a few languages or that you're good with computers, but I'm just questioning if everyone had the good quality education and opportunities to gain that. But it's like, you're young, so you must know this. There's a lot of those kind of misconceptions. And I wanted to direct a question to Noella now. After hearing from Farina about some of the systematic challenges of not being taken seriously, some like administrative challenges that youth faces, and then the intergenerational sort of clash and lack of real job opportunities for youth, what has been your experience like working in the grassroots with youth, your experience through supporting them from the UN agency? What do you have to add to this?
Well, I mean, I think that that's a very accurate, statement to make. We know that first of all, in many contexts, young people are not necessarily going to be even considered as partners, or as someone that needs to be around the table. But then, worse than that, you have many contexts where there's going to be, a lot of threats and a lot of repression against them as well. So I'll post some links, as we chat as well, because coincidentally, last week a report was launched by the Youth Envoy in the UN, specifically about youth and civic space. That's a study that has been that was commissioned by the Protection Working Group of the Global Coalition on Youth, Peace and Security, which precisely is looking at these issues, at what does it look for young activists to try to speak up and try to change things. And the picture is definitely bleak. I'm not saying that, to be pessimistic, but I think that there are certain things that obviously need to be said and need to be recognized. When it comes to the pandemic, for instance, first of all, it took a long time, I think, for some practitioners and some decision makers to realize that young people were going to be disproportionately affected. So I think that to me already is the sign that, something is missing in the analysis, and something is missing also on the side of the workforce and on the side of decision making. If this is not, an immediate sort of step. Now there is at least the recognition that young people, yes, have been affected disproportionately in the context of education, health, etc. What is still to be seen is the impact that this is going to have on mental health, and we see already signs of a worsening, preoccupying situation around that, and also the fact that young activists have been also targeted by some of the lockdown measures, or have been particularly, limited in their action in the context of this of the response to the pandemic as well. So I think that it's important always to consider what a safe space is for young people to participate, and also how to consider also how sometimes, I mean, violence can come from other types of factors, because we always talk about how young people should be peaceful, for instance, in the context of an election or in the context of a political process, but we very, we do not really often think about how, first of all, about what their perception of violence is, and what is the violence against them. So I think that that's super important. It has to do with the assumptions that I was reflecting on at the beginning. I think that the reason why we want to invest in youth is obviously, yes, a demographic one, great. There is a demographic dividend to seize, fantastic. But it's also a democratic imperative. It has to do with human rights. It's not a favor that you're making to young people so that at best, you know, they feel considered, or at worst, you know, you simply make a favor to them by making sure that they stay peaceful. What you want to see is an actual input, but it's also about rights being promoted and protected. And the right to participation is real. What I would say about that, though, is that we're not merely trying to include young people in systems that are dysfunctional. What we want to do is also give an opportunity for young people to shape what decision making should be, what processes should be. So in other words, to shape the table and not just be at the table. And that is very important, and that is why we need to invest in youth leadership. That is why we need to fund more youth-led initiatives that are at the grassroots level. This is why we need to address the issues related to gatekeeping sometimes between major NGOs and youth grassroots organizations, or between youth organizations and women networks that perhaps may have, you know, more power in a particular context. I'm not trying to say that I'm not saying there are divisions within civil society or that we should entertain that, but I'm simply saying that it is important to consider action and modalities from the perspective of these grassroots organizations that are different. You operate with a smaller budget. You don't necessarily have the financial viability, you know, that other organizations may have, but you also do not necessarily have even the right to exist as an NGO. So all these things have to be taken into consideration when we design response from our side, which is why now we have more small grants programs, which is why we are trying to look creatively at how we can embed young people as implementers also within our projects, because otherwise young people would be somehow, you know, a part of the target groups, but will never reach that stage of being, you know, of being leaders. So I just wanted to emphasize, I mean, both the demographic imperative, which is obvious. Yes, young people represent, in fact, the vast majority of the population in all the countries we're working in. So the case doesn't even have to be made on that. But what does it mean concretely? Are we going to continue to reinforce exclusion? No, we don't want to be part of that problem, and we actually want to partner and make that meaningful. So perhaps I would just summarize in like 3 points. I think we have to invest in youth leadership. We have to invest in building, in supporting the capacity development of young people, but perhaps the capacities of other actors to be able to interact with young people as well. So that means also working with the security sector reform, working with public administration, public servants, working within political parties to be able to, or electoral management bodies, so that they're able to actually relate also to the issues that young people are talking about and need responses on. It's important to create a space where systems can evolve and where exclusion is addressed in general. So it's about really like making progress on the promotion of human rights, making sure that accountability is at the center, etc. And it's about supporting genuine inclusive partnerships with young people. So it's about seeing them as partners, and it's about like providing the means for that to be sustainable. So it's about mechanisms, about sounding boards, about having young people within programs, recipients of funding, etc. And I'm seeing in the chat, yes, that youth perspectives on violence strikes me as very important. Youth, on the other point, the violence being clearly related to harm to people, not to things. And in fact, the violence is treating things as if they're important as people. That's very interesting. And in fact, I mean, I think the violence narrative that we've seen for the longest time related to youth, I mean, that has been really problematic. And at least on the bright side, I mean, what I'm seeing is that more and more practitioners and donors and partners are really conscious of that. I mean, they really realize that this invisibilization also of the role of young people for the longest time has really not been helpful, right, at peace building and at trying to foster development. And the simple fact that you would see programs before, you know, sort of articulating, for instance, the importance of creating jobs so that youth wouldn't be violent. I mean, at least now we consider that this is not acceptable, you know, like we've really moved away from this type of narratives. And this is also, I mean, all the credits I would say go to youth organizations and to coalitions on youth peace and security that have really, you know, made that, I mean, really had that difficult conversations with partners, with member states, etc., around the importance of changing that paradigm. So this is what the Security Council also resolutions are saying. This is why, I mean, we have all these now reports. Of course, there are reports, but we also have a lot of programs specifically addressing this and supporting safe spaces, new mechanisms for consultation with youth, new types of roadmaps by which you consider also that all public policies have to do with youth and not just, you know, what is being done by the Minister of Youth. I mean, all these paradigms that is really more progressive, frankly, and more comprehensive too. So there isn't an issue that is not about a youth issue. Yeah. So we need to change that chip.
Yeah. Thank you, Noella, so much. One very important thing for us was to have you on the call and to make sure that we sort of present this inevitable link between the UN, the grassroots, local governments, local politicians, whatever it might be. There needs to be a never-ending cooperation. And it was just music to my ears to hear you say and speak about different initiatives and programs and projects that UNDP is implementing all over the world. And I strongly encourage everyone to sort of try to find as many links with the grassroots locally, but also to try to find the global links and sort of connect our work across the board. And Noella, I'll refer one question later again to you, but now something that you mentioned sounds very interesting to me. And I feel that Wambui will have a lot of things to add to this. And that's the assumptions about youth, sort of the predestined position that youth has in the society, the tokenism that youth experiences. What has been your journey with that? Do you have any stories to share?
Thank you very much, Samira. I would want to say what my friends and I once in a while have this conversation. They will pull out, you'll check a job advert, for instance, and the only qualification that you'll have is to be alive, because they have set it so very high that they are very, very sure that we cannot get that experience. And the most ironic thing is at the end of the day, they will put in, young people and persons living with disability are highly encouraged to apply. And what are you even applying for? And even when some people are lucky to be there, or maybe by luck or by coincidence, or just because some organizations want to look really good, and so that they can parade a person and say, oh, look at Wambui, oh, she's a young person, or she's a woman, or she's Black, or she's, you know, so they'll give you an opportunity. But your work will just be to just sit at the table. You're not supposed to say nothing, talk of anything. You're just supposed to be there. And when you do, they will act like you have had a point, but they won't even put that in consideration. And there has been a very critical conversation that we need to have, whether inclusivity is really just having someone like a young person, or even us having this conversation, for instance. Are we just here to have this conversation, or does our voice really, really count? Because one of the things about tokenism that I have realized is a young person that has been fortunate to go to school is you will get platforms, you know, like they will just put you there so that, like I said, to just look like they are conforming to the new norm that say, oh, you must have women, you must have young people, you must have, you know, Black people. And it is a beauty when you're a combination of all three. But we are also at that point of our lives that sitting at those tables are not just enough. It's either you create a space for us at the table, or we will bring our table and force you people to listen to us. I had a conversation with another friend of mine, and the question is, we've had this conversation, oh, young people need to talk, oh, our time is here, oh, and now the question is, how are we now moving from that position of we have spoken about it, how do we implement it? Or does our voice count when there is violence? Or does like, it will be young people when there needs to be something that actually put us in danger? Of course, there will be like, oh, you're the peace ambassadors, oh, you're the voice for the future, you are the future. But we don't, if you're not able to create a space for us young people, and of course it's also a call for us young people to reject the narrative that sitting at the table is just enough. And sometimes they don't even put you at the table. They put you below the table, pull another young person, maybe from where Samira is from, and now you'll be a gamble between who is liked more, you know, the narrative of likability and the pretense that if you really conform to whatever the organization is, like believes in, you're likely to grow up in the radar. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I have had to like gamble with even the opportunities that I take now, because even when you have the education, even when you have like the qualification of then being alive at that job advert, or like in our context, just being Kenyan, when we get to that table, are we really strategic enough to make sure that they don't throw us out of the table now that they have the majority stake? And how do we influence change for the little space that we have? And I know almost everyone that has been that is in this chat has sat in a forum where we've discussed young people and inclusivity. Like we have to move, and that has always been my logic. One of the things that we thrive in Africa is we have proverbs and wise saying. And our context of recently a politician back at home said a very important thing. Our context is very different from the West in terms of like dogs. We use dogs for hunting. Like people will use it, you know, like we'll go take it to the forest or wherever they're going to hunt. And that person said that if the dog is important at the hunting, he must remain important at the eating table. So if we are important at having conversations of peace, we must benefit from that peace and we must get up there. And the conversation of, oh, you're not qualified is even when you go to school, even the people that are teaching you this thing, they're just telling you, oh, we are giving this you this education, but just don't use it yet. You wait until you grow a little bit older, and you will use it then when age, and they're saying that with age comes wisdom, which is not necessarily the truth, but I'm not saying that will not grow old. But one of the things that I want us to challenge each one of us in the forums that we are in is that if we don't invest in young people, we are not going to get a future. And investing is, I work in a community-based organization where when you're looking for funding, they're asking you for 5 years audited accounts, and you're like, oh, look, we are young people that feel like we can impact and change the community, but you're telling us about 5 years of audited accounts. We don't even have one grant donor that has issued, like given us a grant to even audit in the first place. And it's a challenge that everyone, I believe, either here in Africa, at the West, or wherever people are at, the conversations about the unique thing about young people and women is similar, because they will say, oh, you have this, but then they will take away the power on the other hand. They will say, we have this grant, we want you to make an impact in the community, but they will say, but look, you're not qualified. So what that does is you'll have to go work with an organization maybe that has been there for a longer time, that the board are older people. And I am not saying that older people cannot be youth oriented. Don't misquote me. I'm just saying that sometimes it's just important to have the context and the voice of a young person considered. And it's not just enough for me to sit at those tables, like I said. It's us moving. It's the you and Noella is here. Like, you people, are you like moving the conversations forward, or we're just going to like have those young people attend meetings to just discuss how they are not heard? And the world has to like realize that we cannot keep holding on to, if you don't teach young people the value of holding on to the future, they will have no value for it. And that's why people use young people for war, young people to go and cause violence. But we're also getting to a point where we are now conscious. And it's a great opportunity to sit with young people that are like-minded, regardless of our different geographical locations. At least we're getting to the point that we're saying we cannot just be used to sit as props. It's us working, getting our voices heard, and being given the opportunity to be there from the beginning. And being there from the beginning means that you had being heard does not necessarily mean that the people at the panel must agree with you, but they must sit back and reflect and really evaluate your point, just like they would do to their fellow, maybe older people. And because you're also getting there, I hope it will be a lesson to us when we get to the opportunities that we get, even as young people. Let's just pull another young person. Don't be a hindrance so that you keep there shining. They say that one candle is never enough to light a room, but when we have very many of them, we are able to like get a light and move. And so I have had the experience of being a token at very many spaces. The most important thing is I am conscious about it. I know when I am being that token, but I also made it a duty to myself and to the young people that regardless of the small opportunity that I will get, I will make sure that I use it to impact the lives of another person, maybe for myself or another person, because when I move my space, another young person can step into it. And so I invite every one of us to reject the narrative that and be conscious about being inclusivity and being a token, and what the narrative is. It's so different for us that are young women here, because now you'll have to deal with being a young person, being a woman, and now for us, someone like me being Black. So it's a combination of so very many things. But the good thing is that the superior powers that exist give us the ability to keep fighting. And I hope that each one of us is going to make it their responsibility to make sure that, one, we break the culture that age comes with wisdom, that we cannot give young people a chance at the table. Two, to the older people that are in this platform. I am also an older person to an 18-year-old. And so it's also a challenge to myself. Just move slightly at the table. Just create space for all of us. The world is enough for all of us. And because if we don't plant, and it's not even about activism. It's not just young people being activists. Not everyone can go to the streets. I go to court and someone will have the audacity to disrespect you just because you're a young person. You went to school, you qualified, and they'll pull in seniority. I appreciate that because you learn with experience, but that does not mean that you have to belittle me that much for you to feel like you are. And the notion that millennials and Generation Ys and Zs don't care. The world belongs to is in our hands. We have seen nuclear weapon. We have seen the rise of imperialism. We have seen the rise of every evil thing that there is. So if we don't wake up at this point, the thunders of guns will wake us. But because we are here and we're having this conversation, we hope to salvage it. We hope that young people will not only will not only hear this conversation or just keep repeatedly. One of the things that I'm always tired of is just having the same conversations without moving. But because sometimes repeating these conversations mean that someone learns from them or someone notices that there is a problem. Because one of the things that we also have as young people is sometimes we don't notice these problems. or when I complain about being disrespected in court, some will say, a young person will say, but I'm not a lawyer, so that's not my business. But they forget that if we allow disrespect to, like, whatever space we are in, it multiplies to everyone else. So it's a call for me as I conclude that we must put the people on top accountable. We must hold everyone accountable. We must support political affiliations, but question them. We must not be used as props. And if the being used as a prop is the only opportunity that you have when you get there, please send some influence down, send the ladder down, just create a good environment, represent as well. Make sure that you speak our truth. Because at the end of the day, the truth is the truth. Whether you sugarcoat it, whether you do whatever, speak our truth. Let them kick you out, but at the end of the day, when you go home, you'll be at peace with yourself. And what I say is, if you're not able to be an activist on the street, be an activist in whatever work you do. And activism is not necessarily causing chaos. It's just you speaking up your mind, even if it's doing work, so that the people in that organization will see, kumbe young people are able to do like work excellently. Get that opportunity and run with it. Create a space for us. Don't be the reason they will say, but we gave Wamboy an opportunity and she didn't deliver. Please don't do that injustice. You owe us, I think we owe each other as young people the opportunity to create shoulders for each one of us to step on. And I invite all of us to think about it and challenge the notion that if it doesn't affect you today, it will not affect you tomorrow. If you don't speak about young people in Africa, it will come to America, it will come to Europe, it will come to wherever. We are not immune. At least gender and age is a curse that cuts across if you look at it from a negative world. And so I wish everyone the very best. I welcome you to ask us questions. And if you have experiences that we have, we will be elated to have them. And I hope that we become doers, and I hope we are able to challenge status quo. And like I said, when you get that opportunity, don't be the reason they say young people don't deliver. Be the reason they will say, oh, young people can work. So that's my plea, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Samira. Back to you.
Thank you, Wambui. Wow, just so much wisdom from what you shared. I feel, I know every time I listen to you, I learn so much. And so just a lot of appreciation for what you shared. And I really appreciate your intention to be strategic in terms of working with young people and young people being strategic together about, not just being at the table, but creating and shifting and disrupting the table and making it our own. So yeah, thank you very much for all of those contributions. We'll move now to Abe. And Abe, I'm sure there's so much that we've spoken about already in this conversation, so I'm sure your head is kind of buzzing with ideas, but we'd love to hear from you just if there's anything you'd like to respond to from what has been shared, and then what your experience has been in relation to youth participation and these important issues that we are talking about today. Abe, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's spoken. I mean, I've just been listening and hearing you all speak has been really, really empowering, because everything you've said has really reigned true in the sense that youth are often treated as if, in the best context, you're a seat at the table. But youth need to realize that you're not a seat at the table. You're a person in that seat, and you as a person have a voice that you can utilize. It is your best tool. And as repetitive or cliche as people may say that your voice is your strong suit and your best tool, it is. And I'd want to give the example because I've heard several different kind of examples, but right now, within my context locally, here in Las Vegas, we only have one university, that being the one I attend at UNLV. And for a long time, I really wanted to get involved and become an advocate for youth and all different kind of minority groups within that. And when I ran for the role of student body vice president alongside my friend who's the president. And thankfully, now being in these roles, we expect now to be listened to, because even before in leadership roles, it's kind of been like, oh yeah, you're a student representative, you're a senator, you can have this on your resume, you can have endless experience, endless community service hours, you can do everything correctly, but you still won't be listened to. So now we're in the highest position that we could possibly be in. We represent 30,000 students. I mean, I wake up 6 a.m. every day and work nonstop until I go to sleep. And even then, expecting something to change, we go into these conversations and now we're present, we have that seat, and we're supposed to be representing all of these students that we were elected for. And even then we speak and it goes in one ear and out the other. And it's unfortunate, but it's just the reality, unfortunately. And it's a reality that we need to stop accepting. I've realized that change isn't going to start happening until you start having those conversations like the one we're in right now. And even when you do expect something to change, regardless of where you are, the conversations that you've had or the experience that you have, if they're not listening to you, if they're not giving you the voice, if they're not giving you the platform, then find another outlet to make yourself present, to make yourself heard, because I promise you it does exist. And if within your context, you look and there isn't one, then you have to work until you can make one yourself. And unfortunately for youth, it's going to be hard work. It's going to be much more work than the people before you. And that's okay, because we're paving the way for future generations to not have to worry about, can I be present if I'm youth? Are they going to take me seriously? Because these are generational barriers that have been placed. They are not fixed. I hear a lot from youth particularly saying, oh, I wish and I want to change things, but that's just how it is. Why is that how it is? Why do we have to accept that that's how it is? Is it, or are we just as a society accepting what we're giving and not rejecting these notions that have been placed upon us? And when you start saying, maybe I can change it, maybe there is another way, but maybe someone hasn't just brought it up. Maybe no one's had that fight or led that charge. And one of the things that I've learned in my personal service work and my involvement is that most of the things that I've been able to accomplish have been things that I said that nobody's doing it. Nobody else is doing it. So why am I waiting for someone else to do it? You do it. Go into that position. You have the power, maybe not to the extent that you want. You can't change everything right off the bat, but you can try. What's the harm in trying? And I think the youth, particularly now, have a unique opportunity to do that, because now we have a new generation that has begun to grow at the same time that technology has begun to grow. And with that comes power. And of course, unfortunately, that may vary from where you are in your specific context, but we have access to the internet. We can say, this is what I've heard from my religion. This is what I've heard from my culture. This is what has been ingrained with me. But is it correct? Is this really a bias that I have that I should have? Or is it something that I'm accepting to have and not self-reflecting to change? And with the access and access to media and seeing perspectives from all over the world. I mean, we're on a Zoom meeting right now, speaking from people and individuals from all over the world. So the access is there for youth. The change can be there. And the thing about these upcoming and new generations is that they want to learn. They've realized that these things and prejudices that have been put upon them in the past need to end here. And that's a conversation of accountability as well. And youth particularly have been insane in the way that they've been able to really take in and hold people accountable and say, this isn't correct. I don't agree with this. And even if the entire world, even if all of those leaders that are in political power that are 50 years and up disagree with me, I don't care. I'm going to keep saying my opinion because I think that this is wrong. And the generations after me need to have the opportunity to make their own choice, because the choice I think for our kind of context hasn't been said in open arms. Here, you have a choice to give us a difference of opinion. Let's hear yours. And I think that's something that we can change for those after us. And I think we already are. So I think we're all doing great work. And I think as soon as we realize as youth that change isn't going to come until we make it happen, then that's when we're going to start making some progress. And on the other hand, for all of the folks that are older than us and came before us, I think we need help. We need allyship. We can't do it on our own. And that can look a million different ways. That can be saying, here's this contact, or, oh, I could represent, but you know what? I want to put youth at the forefront. I want to give a platform to youth. I want to amplify. I want to have these conversations. And most importantly, I want to listen, because as youth, I'm always listening. I'm always trying to learn. And one thing is hearing something, and one thing is listening to something. So I think just the very least that you can do is just open up your ears, and I think a lot is going to come from that. And I think we can help each other really form an idealistic future for everyone else to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Abe, and thank you for bringing in the point about allyship and the role that we can all play in supporting the voices of young people. And I think, yeah, I'm just always so inspired by the work, particularly that Anytown Las Vegas is doing around, advocating against prejudice and discrimination in all forms, and to have young people leading that we're seeing, not just in Las Vegas, but all around the world is so inspiring. And so thank you for your contributions. Noella, I'm wondering if you would like to respond to some of the points that Wambui and Abe have spoken to, and just to say we have about I want to say 4 or 5 minutes, and then we hope to do a round of closure and some breakout rooms. So yeah, over to you.
No, thank you so much. I think I'll be very brief. I mean, I don't intend to have the final word on that, not at all. I mean, just to say, Wambui, I think everything you said, I mean, really resonated with our internal discussions as well. And, I mean, the work that the UN does, I mean, from our perspective and in UNDP, et cetera, is really to be a broker also between youth organizations, civil society organizations, women's networks with national and local governments. So in fact, we certainly have, there's a lot of room, I think, for improvement on all fronts, to bridge different actors, to also, analyze grievances, to prevent, misunderstandings, to rebuild, build understanding amongst all the actors. But also, what we particularly do is support and inform policy and legislative reforms. So in that respect, I mean, I really liked what you said also about the fact that not all young people, I mean, even want to be activists, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, and what we do is work with the diversity of youth. I mean, with different hats and different capacities. So it can be young people within a political party. It can be a young parliamentarian. Can be a young person representing the media and engaging with us on the prevention of violence, or on prevention of violent extremism, or on misinformation in the context of a pandemic. It can be young people that are leading their own social entrepreneurship project. So yes, I think recognizing also that youth does not necessarily mean activism, does not necessarily mean also protest, even in that particular case. Is important. Everything you said about tokenism makes perfect sense. I think generally, when the thing that also really irks me is when when you want to have young people first of all, you should have young people at every table. I mean, not when you're only discussing youth participation. So whenever you discuss the future of development, peace, climate change, no matter what, you name it, you have to have young people, just because they're a huge part of that society, and probably they will come up with also fresher solutions, and frankly more aligned with the values that we're upholding. And generally, when the first reaction by a colleague or by a partner is whether this person will be eloquent, and whether this person will be convincing, generally I feel like leaving or I really love, because when is the last
Oh, Noella, you've been muted. Sorry.
Oh,
Don't know how
sorry,
that
sorry.
happened.
And I think
Apologies.
it might have been me. Sorry. So
Okay.
when is the last time, that you've asked your senior leader whether they were convincing and whether they were eloquent or this type of thing? So I say that with a smile, but simply to say that, yes, I mean, we're talking big changes and we're talking very small behavioral changes that everyone should think about when engaging with young people. It's about making everyone feel respected and heard. It's about creating a space where also you're not using a lot of jargon and a lot of complex, terms that perhaps may feel exclusive. It's about not being discriminatory. It's about understanding intersection. It's about all of that. And of course, it's about safety. When you work with young people, you have to have that as a top priority. So just that, I mean, because we talked about also experience required also for specific programs, of course, bearing in mind that there are some programs for recent graduates, and I posted one of them. Of course, they're very small attempts given the magnitude of the issue, but look into that, because there are definitely programs that are open to people with very little experience, in fact. And again, not all experience has to do with professional experience, and I think that we fully recognize that. The experience that a young activist or a young student is going to have to just navigate dynamics, be able to, adapt the discourse to different target groups, be dynamic in a community where perhaps, on a daily basis, we're hearing that nothing can change. All of that is experience. So we highly value that as well. So I certainly do. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, really, to hear all your points. Very good.
And it has been a pleasure to hear so many great words about what we can actually do and what is actually being done currently. We just need to be stronger allies and accomplices, actually, in achieving the change that we want to see. And that was actually the point of why we gathered this wonderful crowd of people on Zoom today. And that is to question the challenges and to start with the thinking process, the thought process in our heads about the challenges that not just youth, but our societies in general are facing because of lack of meaningful youth participation. And that's the first goal. And then the second goal is that we want to spotlight at least one good example from each of these local communities. And I would like to wrap up this wonderful panel by going around to four of our panelists, to Farina, to Abraham, to Wambui, and to Salwa, and to ask them in 2 sentences, just spotlight one brilliant example from your local community of an intergenerational dialogue or a good collaboration that really sort of gives you hope for future and for better and more meaningful youth participation. Abe, would you like to start?
Yes, I absolutely would. I think I'd have to go with the start of everything that I did. Anytown, Las Vegas. We hold a lot of events, but particularly the camp brings youth together. It shows different interfaith work, diversity, anti-racism work, and most importantly, puts youth at the very front. So that would be mine.
Brilliant, Abe. Thank you so much. Wambui?
Yes, Amira. TeenSeed, CB, a community-based organization where I come from, working with the informal settlements, giving opportunity to young people, young women, and everyone to have an equal chance at life. So it's a really important organization, and it is youth-led, but we also engage older people to just pass the wisdom they have to to the young people around, and it has really impacted the community. So yeah, it's an acronym of teen being the teenager, and then seed being like the seeds. The motto is making those teenagers seeds of greatness. Thank you.
Thanks, Wambui. Salva, one positive example from your community.
Yeah, of course, the organization that I'm working with, which is giving opportunities for people in order for youth to develop their skills, and also because I'm environment supporter, and because the environment in our city is like, I can't even describe it. We live in a desert, and this is because there are not many plants in the city. So there is a group of people called the Green Basra, and it has been expanded so much. It is, I mean, on their personal efforts only, and they are like planting a lot of green spaces in the city, which is, I don't know, but it's really great thing to do and to see.
Thanks, Salwa, so much. Farina, an example from you?
Sure, I would go for a not so local example. When I visited Sri Lanka, I was introduced to the Sri Lankan Youth Parliament, which is an exact mirror replica of their national parliament, where youth leaders are elected democratically from their respective districts, and they make decisions and create policies that directly affect the youth in their districts. So I think that's a very beautiful example of something we should all be looking to do in all of our communities.
Thanks, Farina. Sarah, I send it off to you.
Thank you, Samira. I'm feeling the pressure of time, but also the excitement of just so much richness in this conversation. I want to dive into all the points about like what our different experiences are and how that connects with our identities and where we come from and everything. But all conversations to continue, and I strongly believe in giving you all a chance just to express something of how this conversation has been for you. And so we're going to do just 7 minutes of breakout rooms, if that's okay. And in these breakout rooms, really just a chance for you to share what has been something that has stood out for you on the call, and how you're maybe seeing youth participation being enacted meaningfully in your own communities. So we're going to do that, but please do stay, because we have some really great announcements to share afterwards, as well as a resource toolkit, which it particularly focuses on youth engagement in interfaith spaces, to share with you. So let's do the breakout rooms, and then we will come back. Tahil, will you take us into breakout rooms, please?
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, John. Yeah.
Hi. Hey, you know what? Maybe that's the best approach then. That maybe Phil should leave and go be with Dr. Jane Goodall. We were going to be doing that at the top of the hour, and everyone was welcome, but it sounds like you got more to do here.
We do, and we're going to announce it and direct everybody there afterwards.
Okay, so Brother Phil, maybe we should go back to the Global Fire Ceremony Room. Everybody's welcome here when you guys are done.
Perfect. We will be there. Thank you so much, John. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. People. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, wonderful. Please do find your way to a breakout room. I will happily stay here in the main room and chat with anybody who's left.
I'm still here, Sarah.
Are you here there, Richard? Okay, great. Thank you. And it seems like we have Erica and Ina. Are you able to, everybody who's left, are you able to find your way to a breakout room? Or if it's not possible, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks, Erica.
I really enjoyed listening to so many young people being so positive and being so willing to be active. And what I really like what Abe said, not only to hear, but to listen. And I think that is likely one of the most important aspects at any time in life, to really listen, to listen to the other person's opinion, listen to the culture this person comes from, not making assumptions, but being fully open and receiving it as a gift of opportunity to learn from others. And
Absolutely.
I live in Canada, and there's such an incredible opportunity to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. That's really lovely to hear. Yeah, it's so important, the aspect of listening. Hey, Rafi, I see you there. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm fine, thanks. I hope everyone is doing well.
Yes. What were there some reflections from the conversation that stood out for you?
It was a great conversation.
Great. I'm so glad. Anything else you'd like to share?
Yes. I love to join such events and programs here because I want to raise the voice of our generation here, because we live in a society that is conflict and war. Everyone knows that here in Afghanistan, the young generation having access to internet, they can raise their voice. So as a representative of the other young generation here, I want to join in the international events to raise the voice of Afghan youth and to aware other world to know what's going on here. We are witness that in these days, our most of province are in the war, and they are taken by the enemy, Taliban. They are taken and they are killing the military. So here the young generation concerned about their life. So we want from the other countries to help pupils, the humanitarian heads, the military heads to defeat the Taliban here. So I'm glad to hear and join this event.
Thank you so much. And I know, yeah, I mean, the situation in Afghanistan is not easy, particularly
Yes.
from the perspective of young people. But like you said, it's important to have the connections in terms of global connections and, you know, friendships and partnerships that we can create and to support. So yeah, I'm really glad that you're here. For those of you who have just arrived in the room, I know we've got quite a few people who have just arrived. You're catching the end of the Let's Talk About Meaningful Youth Engagement event hosted by URI. And at the moment, everybody is just in breakout rooms reflecting on the discussion and will be coming back shortly. So I'm just letting you know where you are in case you're confused about which room you're in. That will be good. Okay, I think everybody will be coming back shortly. If anybody else in the room would like to, who was present for the conversation earlier, and would like to share any reflections, feel welcome. I'm seeing in the chat, it's saying Humanity Rising, people are totally lost. Rick, is there another event happening on this link? Maybe Rick or Jim, you could let me know. Okay.
Do you want me to respond? This is Joseph
Hi.
Candia.
Yes.
What was confusing is that the Unity Rising link that I usually do every morning, I clicked on that, I couldn't get into the room. And then I just found another link that Stan sent out, and I clicked on that and I'm here. So I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There was a separate link, Stan, for this session. It's a special session. We started half an hour early as a meeting.
Oh, okay.
And there was a reminder email. We couldn't do that with this system, so no reminder email went out.
Okay. So I'll just be
apologies
patient.
about that.
I'll just be patient and listen and just participate from here. It's not a problem.
Hey, Sarah, there's a person in room 6 that's asking for help. Do you want one of your people to go there, or do you want me to?
I think we've closed the breakout rooms now, so I think everybody will be, coming back.
Okay, then I'll ignore it. Okay.
Yeah, I've been noticing that. Tahil, is that correct? Have you closed the breakout rooms?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Stan. Hi, Kurt. Sorry about the confusion.
Tahil, are you good for us to, would you like to offer some reflections once everybody's back?
Yep, you got it.
Cool. Oh, here they all come in a flurry. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that those breakout groups were interesting and engaging, and I'm sorry we had to keep them so short, but please do. There's so much opportunity for ongoing conversation through the URI network, through all the Humanity Rising, World Unity Week, all the partners here. So please do stay in touch with us. We wanted to share with you just a link to what we're calling a Padlet wall. If you would like to post any reflections from your conversation, you can post them on the link which has been put in the chat now. And while that's happening, we're going to ask our colleague Tahil Sharma, who is the regional coordinator for URI North America, just to offer some reflections on this conversation and your thoughts as we come to a close. Tahil, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's an amazing pleasure to be here. I'm not a morning person, but this might have actually changed my trajectory of life, getting to hear my own colleagues being able to share so much insight and wisdom about why and how young people should be a part of leadership. It's given me an opportunity to really think about, a couple of different important points that we need to emphasize. First, it's not about asking people to lose power, but to lose control of majority of their power. The idea that we all share power in our ways to be able to make a difference in the world does not require us to lose power in any way. But when we know that certain generations of people hold more power than others, we're inviting them to be able to relinquish that so that we can actually expand our power mutually to make a difference in the world. The second, which was a point that Noella made about the ideas of interpreting how violence really impacts the way that we understand things differently among generations, is that we are not here to perpetuate any culture of violence if we know that we all are supposed to be empowered and willing and able to make a difference in the world, which means we each have a responsibility to think about not doing a competitive approach to how we have leadership, but a cooperative approach to how we have leadership, which means we aren't battling each other to go to the top. We're supposed to be going forward together. And I think it's important for all of us to keep that in mind when we know that in a space where there is a lot of competition, we're all trying to get stability, we're all trying to make our impact in the world. It doesn't have to be at the expense of taking away those rights or privileges or powers from other people. We can do it collaboratively with them. And I think to the points that, folks like Wambui and Abe and so many other, Farina and so many others made, it's very clear that this is not an invitation to tell people that they should give us power. It is the young people on this call who are already harnessing their power in such significant ways. We're getting to understand that the ability to take on leadership doesn't look the same anywhere. You can be on social media, you can be in governance, you can be in different countries, you can be coming from different cultures or faith traditions, and leadership is gonna look different every single time. And that means your ability to be a leader doesn't mean you have to be on the front lines. Leadership adapts to your style and way of bringing out the best in you. You are that harbinger, you are that tool for peace and leadership. See what your strong suit is and live into it accordingly, because that's how we are able to actually create not just a culture of peace, justice, and healing, but a culture of leadership that includes every single one of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tahil. Beautiful points for us to close our conversation with, and to end on that inspiration. I think that that there's so much wisdom and knowledge and experience in just the speakers that we've had today and in this room that I feel really hopeful and energized by this conversation. So I hope that you've all heard something new or learned something new, or a question has been sparked in you that you want to take forward. Please do share your reflections on the Padlets link. There are a couple coming up that I can see. But unfortunately, this brings us to the end, which I feel like there's so much more that needs to be said, but we do unfortunately need to close. And so I just want to say, it doesn't stop here in terms of there is a whole program of events happening for World Unity Week, and a very, very exciting one happening right this minute. The very next event, which the link is in the chat, is a conversation with Dr. Jane Goodall and Chief Phil Lane, who, this is a beautiful intergenerational moment
switch over
of
and reverse my
switching
connections.
over to another conversation. So I encourage you to go and join that one, which has just started. And then for us to say that we are wanting to share with you a toolkit that has been developed by URI North America, actually, about what the ways in which we can continue to engage young people, particularly in interfaith efforts. And it responds to the question that I get asked all the time of like, where are the young people? Why don't they come? So there's a fantastic toolkit. You can download it, as well as the biographies of our speakers and links to their organizations that you can follow and support and get in touch with them in that way, as well as some more information about URI. If this is the first time you are hearing about URI, we encourage you to find out more and to join us. So I think what's left to say is just thank you to Humanity Rising for hosting us for this conversation. Thank you to our speakers, to Abe, Wambui, Salwa, Farina, and Noella, who had to drop off. But a deep appreciation to all of you for the incredible work that you are doing. And then thank you to our tech team of Tahil and Ezra and Richard, and who am I missing out? Vasu, for doing the Spanish translation for us. Always a gift to be able to have these conversations in different languages. And the URI broader team of Diana, Gia, Alice, Ezra, I think I've mentioned you. This really was a team effort. And to my partner in crime and co-host, Samira, big thank you to you. This event was your idea to start with. So, and I think we can, happily say that an important conversation for us to continue to work with and take forward into our spaces. So I hope you all feel inspired and motivated, and we'll leave it at that. Samira, any closing words from you?
I'm just incredibly inspired and moved, and I hope that everyone is leaving this event with that sort of a feeling. I feel like I can fly. If I could sing, I would sing now that I believe I can fly, but better not to go in that port. But I'm truly inspired and moved, and it's wonderful to offer a hand and being an ally and an accomplice, a true accomplice for a systematic change that we know we need, and us as youth hold an important role in all of it. And I deeply appreciate all of the URI youth who were on the call with us, and Noella especially, for being a true cheerleader for everything that youth does around the world. Sarah, the best partner in crime, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, evenings, mornings, wherever you are in the world. We appreciate you and appreciate your time with us.